Hello. Hi, everyone. Good evening. And welcome once again to the Manchester South Seventh-day Adventist Church. And this evening, we'll be having one of our series of Adventist Youth Services where we'll be focusing on health. Now, today, we'll be looking at men's health with a focus on prostate cancer as well as well-being, which would include the way in which we as men would apply the 8 laws of health to our lives, as well as a minor focus on mental health. Now, our church in Manchester South, Seventh-day Adventist Church, is one of the centers of excellence for health ministry, as far as I can see, and I've been involved with health ministries at many Adventist churches, and I think Manchester South Church is leading the way, especially in the Northern England Conference, where that is concerned. Now, recently, we have had a series of health medical missionaries being trained, and they have passed, they have graduated their courses, and one of the persons who graduated was our church pastor and his wife, Mrs. Campbell. Now, when you attend a church where the pastor himself has completed his training in medical missionary, you know that you're at a church that is pushing the health ministry very much so. Now, many times, whenever we hear about health, we tend to focus a lot on the plant-based diet, but the health ministry is so much more than just that. And Mrs. White has written so many books on health ministries. And for those of you who are wondering what these books might include, the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Healing rather, which is one of my favorite books. There are so many other books, counsels on food, and they have the health ministry, medical missionary. There are so many books that are written, and for those of you who are interested, you can always access these on the EGW app. Online, it is free to download. Now, at this time, I will welcome everyone once again, and we would now have a scripture reading.
Thanks, Mia Cindy. The scripture reading, you're going to take your Bibles, turn to 3 John 1. I think we all know this by heart. 3 John 1 and verse 2. It said, "Behold, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in good health, even as thy soul prospereth." This is scripture reading.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I'm the one who is asked to say the prayer. And as I say it, may it reach each and every one heart. Most kind and heavenly Father, I give you thanks and praise, Lord, once again, for keeping us from morning until now. Lord, it's not because we are worthy. Father, we know we all are sinners, only here through your mercy and your saving grace. Father, I thank you when you went to Calvary Cross to give up your precious life for us, that we can be here today. Father, this afternoon, as this young man of yours, Lord, is going to introduce us to something that will help us. Father, I'm asking to fit the word into his mouth and help us, Jesus, as we hear. Father, we might take it and we might work on it so it may do good to our body. And Father, we cannot do nothing of ourselves, but with you standing by, Father, whatever we do will work. Father, Jesus, have mercy upon all of us. Anyone is on the way coming, Father, I'm asking to hasten the footstep that they may come in time. Bless us, Father, and bless the speaker. All this I ask in the name of the Father, name of the Son, and the name of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
At this point, we will lead off in our song service, and we will begin with hymn number 1 from our Seventh-day Adventist Hymnal.
Let us sing. Praise be the Lord, the Almighty, the King of creation. So my soul praise him, for he is thy health and salvation. All he who hear, now to his temple draw near. Join ye in the adoration. Praise to the Lord, who o'er all things so wondrously reigneth. Shieldeth thee under his wings, yea, so gently sustaineth. Hast thou not seen, while thy desires have been granted in what he ordained? Praise to the Lord, who doth prosper thy work and defend thee. Surely his goodness and mercy here daily attend thee. Ponder anew what the Almighty can do, if with his love he befriend thee.
At this point, we will have another song, which would be song number 6 in the SDA hymnal, "Oh Worship the Lord."
I'm going to invite us to stand, have a little exercise this as we sing this together. Yeah, I'm just trying to pitch it. I'm trying to pitch it. Yeah. Number 6. You're trying to get the.
Number 6.
Yeah, you can get the tune.
I know the tune.
The pitch. Okay, good.
Oh, worship the Lord
In the beauty of holiness, bow down before him, his glory proclaim. With gold of obedience and incense of lowliness, kneel and adore him, the Lord is his name. Lo, at his feet lay thy burden of carefulness, high on his heart he will bear it for thee. Comfort thy sorrows and answer thy prayerfulness, guiding thy steps as may best for thee be. Fear not to enter his courts in the slenderness of their poor wealth thou wouldst reckon as thine. Truth in its beauty and love in its tenderness, these are the offerings to lay on his crown. These though we bring them in trembling and fearfulness, he will accept for the name that is dear. Mornings of joy give for evenings of tearfulness, trust for our trembling and hope for our fear. Please be seated.
Thank you so much for everyone who joined into the song service. I'm sure that we're all blessed by those songs. I've selected them because I wanted us to remember that the Lord is the person who keeps us alive, and it's Him that keeps us healthy at the same time. Now, at this point, we will turn to our presentation. And just right. So start our presentation, of course, men's health, and of course, it's always important that we promote men's health. Simply being, as a group of people, we tend not to be the most health-seeking group, and what often happens is that we tend to watch and wait, and as when we're in that dire state, that's when we tend to come to the hospital, and many times it's too late, right? I've told the story about a gentleman when I was a second-year doctor in Jamaica, somewhere in St. Thomas, in a town called Seafort. This person was having some chest pain the night before and decided that he was just going to watch and wait the chest pain. And of course, we know that a chest pain isn't something that you take lightly, right? The next morning, when he finally came to the health center, he passed away right then and there in the doctor's office, which is something that is preventable, right? So we just need to be more health-seeking in the way in which we go about our lives. So the first thing that we'll talk about is men's mental health, and I believe our elder works in mental health and can share a lot with us today. So we'll be picking on him. So here's the mic, elder, for some inferences on our behalf. And of course, then we'll look at the 8 laws of health and well-being. We know all of them, and we know the acronyms, New Start and God's Plan. And next, we will be looking at prostate cancer and prevention. And of course, all of us here are black men, and we know that prostate cancer is the #1 cancer that affects black men, and that's something that runs strongly in my family. All right, men's mental health. Can anyone tell us what we think that might be mental health and why it might be important? Elder.
Ability to cope with, anything really.
Right.
Stressful or
Right.
something that is exciting.
Excellent.
That you can cope and function very well.
Right.
That means your mental health is good.
Your mental health is good, right? So that's a functional explanation of our mental health. Anyone else? I'm very good at picking on people individually. No? Or elder?
Oh my. Okay. Well, mental health is related to the ability of someone to actually cope with the day-to-day events, situations, circumstances within life, to function optimally at a particular level,
right.
So that they can actually still undertake their living, lifestyle. I'm trying to break it down into a simplified
That's all right. That's
form.
all right.
Usually, training that is provided for people in terms of support is resilience training. And within that, it incorporates the ability of people using certain tools, skills, to be able to cope with the stresses that people undergo. Usually, much of the mental health problems that the majority of people deal with, one of the most common is depression.
Right.
And they say 1 in 3, the statistics vary, in terms of those who experience mental health problems within their given life can vary. So a large proportion of people do that. Then you'll have an area which I deal with, or worked with, which was what they call severe and enduring mental illnesses. And that group is smaller, but yet they can again be helped through using various methods. So, yeah, in
Right.
terms of mental health.
Right. So I think we do have an idea. The mental health is part of your health. It affects your brain, the way the mind functions, and how well we are coping in life with various stressors that life might present on a day-to-day basis. And of course, we do know that mental health can be affected by things that are external to us, our environment, our home, the church, the way we go about our lives in society. However, there is some aspect of mental health that's not necessarily affected by our environment, but it's innate in that you can become depressed, as Elder mentioned, you can become anxious, you can develop psychotic problems, and it's not necessarily related to an external force or external pressures on us. Someone has their hand up.
Just an extension from what has been, just to put it probably an extension from what has been said, some of it can be induced by lifestyle, but also if we don't really take care of mental health, it does affect our physical health.
Excellent. That's a very important point. All right, so 2 in 5 men admit to regularly feeling worried or low, and this increased from 37% in 2009. So as Elder mentioned, of course, one in 5 people, sometimes 2 in 5, depending on where they live, and you have this varies with your country as well as various different other parameters that you would look at. But it's very common, right? 1 in 5, 2 in 5. It's very common, and of course, the most common sort of illness that affect us, not just men, but men and women, would be anxiety, depression. So in hospital, when people come to be admitted, one of the medication that they're on is sertraline, which is a depression medicine or an anxiety medicine. So it's affecting us quite a lot. And of course, we all know all the reasons why, right? And sometimes it can be quite tough for us as men in terms of what is expected of us in society and how it is that we view ourselves and how it is that we imagine other people are viewing us. And here we have a classic example. Why is it that men don't go and get mental health support? Simply because society tells us that we need to man up, just be a man, deal with it, you're too emotional, you're too sensitive, and these, of course, are things which are just inappropriate to say, right? Because it forces us to put on this sort of persona or facade that every single thing is okay for us when sometimes we're struggling silently. And this is why you will find the rates of suicide being higher in men, because they compensate and hide it until they really just give up, and they think that the only way out is to end their life, which is sad, but it happens. And we try to do these presentations as regularly as possible. And of course, I would be more than happy to come back to this same podium or even in the community to do this same presentation again and again. It was only recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the pastor from Erdington Seventh-day Adventist Church actually asked me to assist with this topic, and it was well received by their church community, and the conversation went beyond what I expected it to be, but it was really good that people were engaged. And out of that presentation, I was actually invited to join a men's group, men's support group, to help with other men who are dealing with these things that they really don't have the sort of language to describe how they're feeling, simply because we just don't practice speaking about our feelings. So we tend to support each other. So of course, the main important thing is it's important to ask for help, right? So regardless of what it is, if you find that you're developing symptoms of anxiety, and of course these would be you're feeling nervous all the time, you're shaking, your heart is racing, you're breathing very fast, you have this sense of always fearing something, you just always feel like your heart is beating, you really need to seek help, right? And of course, symptoms of depression, you're feeling sad all the time, low mood, not having enough motivation to do what it is that you like to do. You tend not to have the sort of interest in things that used to make you happy, like meeting up with friends, coming to church, spending time with your loved ones, and probably gardening, going for walks in the park. Some people also have problems with sleeping. They sleep a lot, they don't get enough sleep. Those are symptoms of depression, eating, overeat, undereat, right? So if you're having these symptoms, it's time to ask for help. And where can we get help? help is available through the NHS. So we have a crisis support team. You can always Google this, the number for the crisis support team. You have the A&E. I know that the NHS is actually asking people not to come to A&E, but if it is that you're having problems, you can always call 111. You can call, and there's always somebody there who would be able to point you in the right direction to get the help, right? The person might necessarily be a doctor who picks up the phone, but they are trained to sort of triage the problem that you're experiencing, and they point you in the right direction. And of course, the crisis support team is a 24-hour team. Any time of day, any time of night, you can always call them, get help, and they are always open, and they will tell you the closest location to you. Next, you have counselors, right? And at this church, I know we were trying to start a program of mental health first aid, and I believe there are people who have been trained in years previously, and they still have their skills that you could speak to them. I believe Sister Monet is one of them. So if it is that you're struggling, I'm sure Sister Monet is always a person who you can trust. And not only is she trained in mental health first aid, but she is a registered nurse, and she practices as a nurse for many, many years, and she works with the social health. She works with families who are facing dire times, and she's really good, right? And of course, she's our community health leader. Next, Elder, is there any other sort of support network that you're aware of that we could ask for help? So there's always help available. Don't ever feel like you're suffering alone or going through this problem by yourselves.
I know within our society, it's better now in terms of the support at different levels. So, I mean, when I think maybe all of us were growing up, when you were in school and you experienced any mental health problems, there wasn't anyone there, professionally put, to actually help. The increasing number of schools have that. Universities, pretty much they have that there in terms of support through counseling or through actual mentors as well.
Right.
And then in the communities, they do provide more support through various services that's provided there. So for example, for African Caribbeans,
right,
we do have the African Caribbean mental health services, as you may be aware, they're based within the Hume area. And so you'll have increasing number of mental health services that are more specific to age, to ethnicity, culture, etc. So it is growing in terms of the support there as well.
Excellent. And I remember the government is actually trying to invest a lot more in mental health support, and I do believe both of our two conservative candidates for the prime minister's role have pledged that they would offer more to assist people with mental health. And I know that there are individuals who have been mental health influencers, and they have been trying to raise awareness for us. All right, so mental health matters, and I'll always encourage everyone to do some research on your phone. If you're having a problem, you can always Google what's happening, how to get the support. And I'm sure this program is being streamed live on YouTube and will be accessed by many people all around the world. And I know that there's always help somewhere for everyone. Right, so at this point, we remember that we did say that the way in which yes, somebody has a question.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we wanted to ask more
I just wanted
questions.
to
Yes.
find out something. I live with somebody who's got mental health issues.
Right.
I've been living with it's my wife for 20 years now.
Right.
So how really can I tell how my mental health is myself?
Right.
Supporting her, because she is not involved much with the services.
Right.
The only support system she has is me, because she wasn't really getting much, involved, and then she was sort of out of the system. Recently, she has she has been visited by a doctor and stuff like that. But I just want to think about my well-being
Right.
as a person who is supporting the individual. How can I measure that? Okay, now I think I'm struggling,
Right.
or I'm still okay.
Right. So, so the phenomenon of caretaker burnouts always there, and we do know that whenever someone has a chronic illness, the person caring for them, they too can start to develop symptoms of stress, symptoms of depression, anxiety, because it's a lot for one person to do many times. So I understand you said that your wife isn't fully engaged with the services, but we do know that if the person doesn't have the motivation to go to the offices, then you can always call for support for them to come into the home. But your question is focused mainly on how it's affecting you personally. Right. So I would suggest that you could speak to a counselor, a trained counselor, to speak up, even if it is that you're not quite sure how it is affecting you. You can always speak to a trained counselor about these things. And of course, they have various techniques in getting you to speak about various things, right? And they would ask both open-ended and closed-ended questions to try to find where there might be an issue that you might be struggling with. And they're usually pretty good. Elder, you're going to say something?
Yeah, they do have another related services, carers. So they'll have carer services that are particularly there to help, of course,
Right.
people who are caring, whether it's physical health, whether it's mental health.
Right.
They'll have carer groups. They do have what they call PALS.
PALS.
Patient Access Liaison Service as well. And they can network. Mind, M-I-N-D, used to be a counseling service going back quite a few years ago. But that Mind now has become a network service, which people can ring and they may say, okay, we need a particular need in this. I need, this is my situation.
Right.
What is out there to help?
Right.
And Mind actually can network and say, well, these services are available to help you in X situation.
Right.
So there is a growing number of services that are there to help, especially carers.
Right.
in the situation which our brother has mentioned about. Because the last thing the government recognizes is that if the carers burn out, then the person who they care for now becomes more of their responsibility, which actually generates more resources needing to actually provide that support for that person as well. So yeah, that's one of the areas as well.
Right. So there's help for the person caring for someone with mental health challenges. Someone had a hand up? No. Right. So So you're asking if I finish with mental health, but the aim for today was to make us aware that we shouldn't be struggling silently. There is help for us, and I wasn't planning to go off into the various sort of mental health challenges in detail, but it was just to make us aware that our mental health is important, and we should always seek help, because there's lots of help for us, right? So at this point, do we have any more questions about the mental health and seeking help? No? Right, so at this point, I would go over now to the well-being aspect, which is looking at the 8 laws of health. And of course, we know that the 8 laws of health presents a balanced, sort of holistic approach to our health care and how we take care of ourselves. Now, you might be familiar with this acronym, NEW, which is new, and START, New Start. There's another acronym called God's Plan. And I know that at this church, our health team members prefer God's Plan because it shows where the health laws are coming from. But I like New Start because it's easier to remember personally. But I would mention that these aren't just a group of laws that we just pulled out of the air and just say they are the 8 laws of health. Because each of these, they are based in the Bible. There's scripture to support each and every one of them. And if it is that we read the book, The Ministry of Healing, we would see how the Lord himself practiced each of these 8 laws of health. I won't go too much into it. We've done a entire presentation on the 8 laws before, and we looked at each of them in detail. So don't just assume that they're not, any of them is less important than the other, because they help us to have a balance in our life. And believe me, if it is that you are struggling with a lifestyle-related illness, I can almost guarantee you that one or multiple of these 8 laws are not necessarily being followed as it should be, right? So, of course, we look at them quickly. Nutrition. And, of course, as I mentioned earlier, that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is really good at pushing the plant-based diet, and we do have our church sister here who does some of the demonstrations for us. And I must mention that some of the best cooking ever, the best tofu I've had was from you. I mentioned that before. I'm not a person who likes tofu, but that was really nice. So at this church, we do a lot of pushing a lot for the plant-based diet, because it is so, what you consume affects your body so much more than everything else, that you really have to remember to go back to the basics, go back to the original diet that the Lord gave us. So we have various little catchphrases that we could use to help to guide our food choices. Now, let's say eat more color, and we do know that fruits and vegetables are colorful. Of course, meat isn't, and we try our best to avoid meat at all costs, because every single thing that you can get from meat, you can get it from your plants in a better version of it that your body can use without causing illness, right? So eat more color, eat less sodium, and sodium is essentially one of the main components of salt. And if it is that you need to use salt, try to use sea salt, because it has a lower percentage of sodium. Whereas if you have the common table salt, then that has a higher percentage, of course. And why is it that sodium is bad for us? Sodium, of course, causes your body to retain water, and it contributes to high blood pressure. All right? So more fiber. So fiber is basically the roughage in the food. So you get fiber from things like your green leafy vegetables, right? So what's the importance of fiber? It adds bulk to the contents of your digestive tract, and it helps the body to push the food along as it's being digested, right? So that way you avoid things like constipation and all the various stomach discomforts that can come with that. Now, if it is that you find yourself constipated all the time, of course, you can have artificial fiber that you can buy to add to water to drink, right? So eat the right fats. I know that if you watch TV, you think all fats are bad, but there's good fat and bad fat, right? So the bad fat is the fat that you get from animal, any sort of red meat and so forth. That's all bad for you. So good fats. So lots of grains and nuts tend to have a little bit of oil to it, like you might hear of peanut oil, you might hear of coconut oil. Coconut oil is very controversial as of a few years ago. You might hear of olive oil, rapeseed oil, and there are all these various oils that comes from peas and beans, right? So these are the good ones, right? The good fats. And of course, we have other things such as avocado. Avocado here is a fatty fruit, and that's actually a good for you. And of course, in Jamaica, we all know about ackee. Ackee is also a fatty fruit, but that's a good type of fat, right? Now, it says make off your plate fruits and vegetables. And of course, you always want to do this because fruits contain so many things: your vitamins, your micronutrients per se that you won't get from other things, right? And the more fruits and vegetables you can have, the better. And of course, it's not hard. It's cheap. If you ask me, it's cheaper. It's way more cost effective to be a vegetarian or vegan rather than just to eat meat, right? And of course, a lot of the challenge that a lot of people would have is that they don't know of vegan recipes, vegetarian recipes. But the truth is, they're easy to learn. And of course, if you come to our church at Manchester South Seventh-day Adventist Church, where I will always say that we're a center of excellence for the health ministry, you would learn a lot from the various food demonstrations that we have here. And of course, you can always access these meals on the internet where you can find how to prepare them. And you can usually prepare an entire meal that lasts you for a week in less than an hour, right? So other little tips. So natural fruits and vegetables for health benefits. So when you eat your fruits and vegetables, you tend to take in less nutrients that are bad for you. So what will happen naturally is that you will have lower blood pressure, tend to boost your energy. We do know that a lot of the juices, the fruit juices, boost your energy, and you tend to look and feel great. I remember I tried to be a vegetarian for about 8 months, and I must say that I felt really good for those 8 months. It was like the best feeling I've ever had. It's like you wake up in the morning feeling refreshed all the time. It's like this natural high that I just can't explain. So it protects you from chronic diseases, and I've already done another presentation about chronic diseases, and just for those of us who are not familiar with the term, chronic diseases that last longer than 3 to 6 months, so the high blood pressure, the diabetes, the heart problems, circulation problems, stroke, heart attack, those are chronic problems, right? So also it reduces the risk of heart disease, mentioned that, and your mental health, it improves your mental health, and it's good for controlling your weight because you're eating less of the bad fat, and it's part of your healthy diet. Next, it lowers sodium and calories. Now, it also says that they help your body get the vitamins, minerals, fiber, and the other natural substances which we need. There's something else I was going to mention right here, but it's gone. All right. So next, so new start, N-E. Right? The next is E, exercise. Can I ask us to raise our hands? How many people think they're exercising enough? You're exercising enough. You would say that. Or what type of exercise do you do? You walk, right? Walking. Excellent. And Mrs. White said that walking is the best form of exercise, and I'll explain why to you. So, anybody could tell us how much exercise would be adequate? Half an hour of doing what exactly? And all right, how many times per week? How many times per week? Every day, right? So that's actually quite right. So I believe the World Health Organization advocates that you get at least 15 to 30 minutes of exercise in at least 3 to 4 days per week, right? So that's what would be the minimum. The minimum. Right, that's the challenge, because I was speaking to a gentleman this week who had Parkinson's and just can't get the exercise in, because with Parkinson's they tend to walk very slowly and they can't really exercise. The thing is, you do as much as you can. That's what I would say, right? You just do as much as you can. It's better than not doing anything at all. All right, so there are people who can't walk, but they can do other things with their hands, right? So you might see people, dumbbells, and they're playing, and they're doing all sorts of, you're right, things like that. And of course, I would always say that's better than doing nothing, because you're burning calories, you're increasing your heart rate, and it has a positive effect on your mind, has a positive effect on the body, right? So I'll say it again. At least 15 to 30 minutes, at least 3 to 4 days per week, and that's the minimum. Right, so how does that exercise affect us? So it lowers your blood glucose, glucose is your blood sugar, right? Especially for people who have type 2 or type 2 diabetes, or they're at risk of developing type 2 diabetes. It helps, so it improves the body's ability to use insulin. It reduces their insulin requirements, and it better control of diabetes, reduces the risk of heart disease. Is there a hand?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Brother Williams when he talked about people who can't walk. I think what is needed is for you to, make your heart function, sort of, so that the blood is moving. Because when you exercise, it's like the blood is flowing throughout the body, and that helps, for you to become healthier.
Right.
Yeah, it's not about using your feet, or it's just what kind of thing that you can make your heart function.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that walking isn't the only exercise. And I mean, there are so many swimming. You have this sort of aqua therapy. So many things that you can do, and most people tend to find what they like doing. And of course, I would always say, if you're going to go walking, it's always safe to go walking with a partner, somebody who you can walk with. I mean, things sometimes dangerous, right? You just don't want to go for a walk and not return home. All right. So the W for water. And there is an entire chapter on water in the book, Counsels on Diet and Foods. And so the tips for water. So you want to replace the water that your body would lose throughout the day, and of course, there's this number. There's this number we say drink about 7 to 8 glasses of water. I mean, most people can drink 7 to 8 glasses of water without it being a problem. So the people who shouldn't do that are the people who would have heart failure and kidney disease, and they would have been told by their healthcare providers how much water they can drink, right? Because just that they get fluid overload, they get leg swelling. But if you don't have any of these illnesses, you should go for the 7 to 8 glasses of water, right? So, pardon? Well, you don't necessarily need to be drinking that much, really. You drink more than that? Well, okay, I guess in the warm times, in summertime, you probably get a bit dehydrated, I guess. Not necessarily, no. All right? So next, the benefits would be to increase brain power and concentration. We do know when you're really dehydrated, you can't really think that well. And it helps you to give you energy so you don't feel as tired. And of course, it helps your body to be healthy so you can easily lose weight or to maintain a healthy body weight. Flush toxins. We know that once you drink a lot of water, you're always producing urine, and you lose a lot of the toxins from your body in your urine. So it improves your complexion, reduces chance of headache, gives you a fresh breath, and it improves your mood. Now, Mrs. White in book Counsels on Diet and Foods, she tells us that if it is that you're going to drink with your meal, do we know when to drink in relation to your food? The rules. So, Elder.
My memory is correct. It's around half an hour before.
Right.
And no less than 2 hours after.
Right, excellent. That's it. So if it is that you're going to drink after, you should wait at least 2 hours afterwards. It's simply, we all know the reason why, right? So when you consume, you're going to say something, Deacon, yeah?
Some people, talk loud enough. Some people cannot eat without drink. Or they take a mouthful, they have to have a drink, otherwise they start choking and things like that.
Right.
So what do you say about that?
That is actually true. But the thing with these people is that they have a special diet, right? They usually will be switched to a soft diet, so like the mashed potato, the crushed pumpkin, because we do know that they need the softer food, or else they will choke, and they usually have a very special diet, really. So we don't promote drinking water. And if it is that somebody can't swallow, it's always a soft diet, and they would have been working with a dietitian who would help help them to plan their diets ahead, right? So the reason why we tend not to drink, and I will share my own personal testimony where this is concerned. So I have a very bad case of reflux, gastroesophageal reflux disease, which I've diagnosed myself with, and it was because when I was a younger doctor back like 7 years ago when I just qualified, I used to work a lot of swing shifts, night shifts, and in Jamaica you tend not to do shifts, you do longer shifts where you are doing 24, 32, 72 hours, and it's really bad. So you tend to sleep when you can, and it affected my diet because you will be so hungry by the time you get something to eat that you eat a lot and you're dehydrated, so you drink a lot as well. You can't always get the chance to drink before then wait the 2 hours after if you're going to have the meal. So I used to eat and drink at the same time, and sometimes the little time that I would get to sleep, I just rush and eat and drink, then go to sleep. And of course, with all that food in your stomach, it's pushing up against the food pipe, and the acid and everything just destroyed the way my stomach functions. And I used to always have the acid and the food going straight back up inside my food pipe as soon as I lie down. And of course, I've been struggling with that ever since. And if I was following what Elder said, that wouldn't have been happening to me. And of course, you know that if you're going to eat, you shouldn't be eating and sleeping at the same time. You want to wait about 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours before you lie down. And I remember my grandmother used to tell me this, that she can't eat after 6 o'clock because she got to her bed at between 8 and 10. And I used to laugh at her and say, how you mean you can't eat after 6 o'clock? But lo and behold, there was lots of wisdom behind what she was saying. And of course, I didn't listen to that. And now I am struggling a lot with gastric reflux disease. Right. So that's water. Do we have any questions about the water?
Job.
Right.
A certain type of job, what you do.
Right.
When it comes to the eating part, because I know when I used to work at the hospital,
Right.
and sometimes I'm supposed to do 12 hours,
Right.
and I end up doing like double.
Double shifts, right?
Yeah, but then as you talk about the eat, I can't eat. I just like have to just catch a bit.
Right.
And,
Right.
and move on.
Right.
And I found out that when I do reach home, I can't really eat because the stomach is full of gas.
That's true.
Right?
That's
because
true.
it was full of gas that much that it did affect me.
Right.
I got to go to the doctor and they do some operation and saying I've got gastroenteritis and it caused from that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But
Okay.
anyway, the one time they do it, I'm all right.
Okay.
But so those kind of system you got to watch
Right.
when you're working and how you eat.
Right.
Otherwise, it can be very bad for you.
Right. Okay. That's true. That is true. And does anyone else at the back who just came in, do you have any tips that you could share about drinking? I'm not sure if you might have come across something in Spirit of Prophecy. I was just mentioning that Spirit of Prophecy had an entire chapter on water, which is taken from the book Counsels and Diets and Foods. And I've mentioned that you ideally should drink 30 minutes before eating your meals or 2 hours after. Do you have anything else that you like, any tips that you like to add to that, Sister Monette?
Walking to the car,
Right.
someone shouted out, "Hello, church ladies," because we had our hats on, you see. So we went over and chat, and this was a patient who was on a 2-hour break. And
Right.
I could see from her lips, and when she spoke, her tongue was so dry.
Oh.
And she was drinking a soft drink, one of these 50 pence canned drinks. And I was trying to say to her, for every one of those you drink, you should have at least 2 glasses of water, or 2 bottles of water.
Right.
And she looked and she said, that might be a good idea, but, and there was always a but. And then she told us the list of, she had the whole pharmacy in her blood, to be quite honest.
Of course.
There were about 7 medications she was on.
Right.
Some I knew, and some were so new I'd not heard their names before.
Lifestyle-related illnesses.
But what I was trying to say to her, with that amount of medication and the amount of sweet things, you need to drink more and more. And she understood it. But I think for someone who's in hospital,
right,
drinking sugar comes like a treat, isn't it?
Right.
And so the benefits of water is something you've got to develop,
right,
the habit. And I think even for us Adventists, we know about it, but we tend not to use that knowledge and that information as effectively.
That is true.
And I find working with men in the community, men are particularly resistant to drinking water.
Right.
I don't see, and I'm going to ask a straw poll, how many men here in the building have got a bottle of water with them now? Put your hand up. We've got 6 men here, only 1 has. Do I prove my point, men? Women will tend to walk with water probably because we have a handbag.
Right.
But I think men need to develop, put it on your hip. You know, they've got, or something. Because this particularly, I don't know if you were doing prostate.
We haven't gotten there yet. But
Oh
we're getting
yeah,
there.
I'll save the next bit.
All right. All right.
I I was going to ask, is there any type of water we should be drinking? Or
Yes, that's a point that I was supposed to mention. So Spirit of Prophecy refers to soft water. I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to. So soft water is essentially water that doesn't have lots of magnesium and calcium carbonates, right? So what happened is that when you catch the rainwater, it hasn't gone through the dams and the various pipes that we get water from. And many times we get water from aquifers. Aquifers are essentially stones underground that traps the water, and we tend to pump it. So these aquifers tend to have various stones, and some of them is limestone, which is calcium carbonate, and it has it's referred to as hard water. This is the type of water that builds up the lime scale in pots and your clothing iron, right? So Sister White asks us to avoid that type of water. We should be drinking the soft rainwater. And I can't say that there is a specific health, in terms of from a healthcare health professional standpoint, I don't know what the evidence is against drinking the regular pipe water versus the soft water that you get from the rain. But I do know that we do tend to filter our water, right? And in some municipalities or in urban areas, the water that you have tend to have high amounts of toxic metals in it. So you probably should know about these things by just probably calling your council and ask them about what is the water rating. I know that in Michigan, where Sister White did some of hers, where the Seventh-day Adventist Church actually had some of its early health ministry developments, they had this stone called Flint, and they had lots and lots of, I believe it was lead in the water, and of course people were getting sick. They tried to deny it, and afterwards there was a lawsuit. Then they did this big research, and it came to the fore that in fact there was lead in it, and the people were getting affected. So what they did was to avoid drinking tap water and drink bottled water, which of course would have been tested and so forth. But the thing is, some of these bottled waters that we're drinking isn't necessarily as pure as we would like to assume, and we still have to do our research. Is this brand of bottled water as good as it says it is? And the next point is, there's this thing about alkaline water. Of recently, everybody's been talking about alkaline water. So if you read it, essentially what alkaline water has in it is sodium bicarbonate. Sodium bicarbonate is the same thing that we use to put in foods. It's baking soda, essentially. People put it in the fridge to get the scent out. People put it in the bathroom to get rid of the odors. And of course, we bake with it because it produces carbon dioxide that causes your cakes to rise. Now, the thing is that is there an added benefit to drinking alkaline water? Is really expensive, more expensive than the regular water. I'm not quite sure there is why people. It's just one of those things that people like to do. People like trendy things, right? Have I answered your question? Soft water. That's a good question. I mean, bottled water, some of these bottled water are really good. Some of them. So boiling it, but the benefit of boiling the water is that it would kill germs and some of the germs in it. But you see, the thing is, the calcium, magnesium carbonates that it contains, you can't boil it to get rid of it. The only way you're going to separate is if you had like some sort of distillery or something to distill the water, where it captures the water vapor and then condenses it. So that's the only way you separate it. But I mean, I'm not quite sure boiling would help.
Yeah, in fact, you actually mentioned what I was going to say.
Oh, did I?
So in times past, with regards to the rainwater, and where that would be effective is when the atmosphere was very clean. And now the atmosphere is still quite polluted. So even though it goes through the natural process of, for example, in the seas or the rivers, where the water will evaporate, come into the clouds, will drain down, and you'll be able to capture that. That was kind of like a distilled process. But what my family's been using for years is the distilled actual filters. Yes, so it's you put the water in the container, and then it heats up the water, and then the actual evaporated water comes and actually is collected in a bowl. and you'll be surprised what is left at the bottom of the tap water. And after a few sessions of that, it's very brittle and thick, because that's what's left, the impurities of what's there. And one of the researches that I was hearing of was that those which are hard water actually can contribute to arthritis, certain types of arthritis, and because of its impact upon calcium and deposits on the bones around that.
Oh, wow. There it is. That was why Mrs. White wanted us to drink the soft water. But can I ask, where did you get this distillery from? Like,
okay, you can purchase it on the Amazon or whatever. You'll go in and ask. You just look for a distiller. You pay once. Mine lasts for years and years. But it's just a reassurance that you're getting the pure water. And I'll just mention quickly, some may say, oh, well, you're lacking the minerals, the actual minerals, so you'll have mineral water. But what they don't realize is that the minerals, you don't eat the dirt minerals from the ground. The best minerals that we get is that which has been attached to the molecules within plants.
Right.
And so when you eat the minerals from the plants, so for example, if you get iron from plants, it's a different chemical combination than if you're getting iron physically from the ground.
Right.
So that's where you get your minerals, that's where you get your calciums, because the plants have absorbed that, modified it, so it's best for our bodies to actually take in.
Right. It's in a form that your body can easily absorb.
That's right.
And
That's
use.
right.
It's just that for those of us who are online, they would need to hear the questions.
If we boil the water, will it make any difference?
So as Elder was saying that if you use a distillery, right, so the distillery is a form of boiling the water. Okay. So it captures the steam and it condenses it, so it separates the sort of chemicals or the minerals in the water, and now you have pure soft water. Okay. But boiling it in a pot by itself would not have the same benefit, because the water will remain in the pot with the minerals, right? So the distillery separates the steam and condenses it back.
My problem is that when I'm eating,
right,
I have to be drinking at the same time. And they said it's all wrong. What?
Of course it's wrong.
Why?
Right, so of course, I guess you came in after Sister Monique was going to answer.
I was just going to say, what you have got is a habitual addiction to eating and drinking, which is not healthy. So you've got to start to unlearn that, because in so doing, you're actually interrupting the digestion of your food, because your stomach produces juices which aid or food digestion, and you're diluting it, and therefore it's making the process longer. And then by the time you're ready to eat again, that first meal hasn't been fully digested and processed. Yeah, and particularly people who eat meat, which can take up to 6 hours to digest. So I'll stop there, but that's food for thought.
The mic.
Just to compound that, so if you eat and drink, it takes, say, 5 hours, but if you eat before that, your digestion stops and says, we need to get everything to the same level of digestion before we move on again. So the point of not eating in between meals as well is to make sure that your food digests all at the same time, at the same stage, because your digestion will stop. The minute you put something new in your mouth, it says, stop, we've got to work on this bit, and when it's all at the same level of digestion, then it moves on. So some people never stop digesting, basically.
Right.
So I have to drink before?
An hour, is it 1 hour before?
At least 30 minutes before.
30 minutes before and 2 hours
2 hours
after.
afterwards. Yeah.
And not too much gravy.
Right. Thank you so much. I'm really happy that we spend a little bit more time on this topic because I remember our health leader was saying that he wanted to have an entire presentation on water, and I think we have touched on all the main important points that would have been involved in that presentation. All right. So next is the sunshine, and I know that in countries that are in the Arctic region or in the temperate regions, we tend not to get enough sunshine, and we get most of it during the winter times. And the winter might not necessarily be really sunny, it's because we tend to have some overcast days as well. And of course, the reason why do you think that the sunshine might be one of the 8 laws of health? Anyone? How does it positively impact our health and mood?
Vitamin D.
Right.
I'm going to.
So,
So
right.
it manufactures the vitamin D in our skin, is it? And also
Excellent.
it makes us happy. It makes the endorphins.
Endorphins, right. So
That's the word.
endorphins are chemicals in the body that gives us pleasure.
Yeah. So it
gives
makes
us-
us happier. It's like
Right.
having exercise, but not.
Excellent. But what happens if it is that we don't get enough sunshine? So what happens is that we can keep that mic with the ladies, since as they're contributing the most. And then we'll have another mic for us, the gentleman at the front.
I would say the sunshine
Right,
is good for everything
right,
because, if even cultivation,
right,
when you cultivate,
right,
and it don't matter what kind of fertilizer or whatever you put, and if it don't get the sunshine,
right.
it seems to stifle
Stifle.
away. And it's just the same like human body.
Right, that is true.
If we don't get the sunshine in our body,
Right.
we're losing out on something.
That is true. That is true. And personally, another one of my personal testimonies that during the winter time, I try to travel abroad at least twice so that I can get the sunshine because it positively impacts my mood overall. In December, I went to Turkey and spent 10 days. And I remember one day I had a proper sunbathing. Like, I know that dark-skinned people don't usually sunbathe, but I did it because it makes me feel happy, and it was a really good experience. And so what happens if we are, so I guess I should rephrase this question. Are there any precautions that we should be taking when we're exposing ourselves to the sunlight?
Yeah. Because even though we like the sunshine,
Yes.
if you take too much of it,
Right. Right.
just like the Bible mentioned, anything you do and overdo it,
Right.
it's hurt you.
We're coming up to that because one of the 8 laws is temperance, right? So try not to overdo anything. And then the ladies are contributing to the precautions when exposing ourselves to sunlight.
Cancer.
Right, skin
Is
cancer.
the main part. Yeah.
Right, so everyone is at risk of skin cancer, right? It doesn't matter your skin tone or not, we can develop skin cancer. And ideally, you should use a sunblock, at least SPF 50, to protect yourself, right? And remember, in the book Ministry of Healing, they spoke about Sister White reflected on the life of Christ and how he would go out into the sunshine, especially when he's conducting his ministries. So it's not always at nighttime or indoors; it's usually outside. And she was emphasizing the exposure to the sunlight as well as to the fresh air. Right, so the air itself is coming up next. So we're at the start part of it now. START, sunshine, followed by temperance. All right, so it says, in order to preserve health, temperance in all things is necessary. Temperance in labor, so try not to work too much. And again, I mean, one of the main reasons I came to the UK was because we work for 40 hours as doctors. The 40-hour work week gives us a better lifestyle balance between work. In Jamaica, it was anywhere between 80 to 100 hours, and I was burnt out all the time. I remember one morning I was working at the Kingston Public Hospital, and I reached work, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I was just too tired, and I was about to start a very long shift of about 16 hours, and I just said that, you know what, this can't be it. And of course, I made a positive health decision, which was to leave and come to another healthcare system that offers the work-life balance, right? There are lots of people who are burnt out by their jobs and they don't realize it. And I'm sure we all have testimonies about various instances, right? So temperance in eating and drinking, we have touched on that already. So how to live. So that is How to Live, page 57. So that's another book from the Spirit of Prophecy. So true temperance teaches us to dispense entirely with everything hurtful and to use judiciously that which is healthful, right? So as Seventh-day Adventists, I mean, we don't gamble, but you're going to try not to gamble, but men do gamble. No gambling, no drinking, because, of course, these things are hurtful. No smoking, and we know that people tend to turn to these things simply because they feel as though they're at a point in their life where they feel bored, they feel listless, they feel like they don't have anything that gives them sort of pleasure and makes them feel normal. So they tend to go towards these things, but ultimately, it's actually doing more damage than good. So, of course, we try to avoid all of that. And other things that you need temperance in, not just your food and your diet, but what about coming to church? You probably should come regularly and not just once a month or once every couple of months, right? Anything else that we can think about that we tend to overlook where temperance is concerned?
Sleep.
Excellent. Right. I don't know how I forgot sleep, but right. So, sleep, so what are the numbers relating to sleep?
8 hours.
8 hours for an adult, but for a child, it will be closer to 12, right? So babies tend to sleep all the time, but children, 10 to 12 hours of sleep is necessary. And what else about the sleep that's important? So before 9 o'clock, so every hour, before 12 o'clock. So every hour before 12 o'clock, you get twice as much rest as the hours after 12. Right, I believe that's the rule, right? And I didn't even know that because when I was in medical school, I used to do all of my studying right up until 1, 2, and then go to sleep. But what I should have done is the other way around, where you sleep and then wake up in the early morning and then study. I didn't know that, but the one person who did that approach was the only person to make it onto the dean's list every single year of medical school. She was a Seventh-day Adventist, and I guess that was her study secret. It actually works. I mean, you'll feel more motivated when you get up to study. If your brain is fresh, you can just memorize every single thing, and I wish a lot of young people were here, especially those who are in university, to benefit from this little bit. Yes?
Yeah, concerning the sleeping part. There's a lot of people, they cannot sleep, no matter what they do. They just can't sleep.
Sleeping, right. So, and anyone has any tips for difficult sleepers? I'm one of the difficult sleepers.
And I think they say no bright lights before
bright
sleeping.
Lights, yes.
So your phone, tablets, or anything like that.
Excellent.
I know a bath works for me. If I have a bath.
A soothing bath, yeah.
I have the best night's sleep ever.
Excellent.
And then I think, what else do I do? There's herbs like chamomile. I think there's another one called, is it linden? There's herbs that you can drink.
It's aromatherapy, so the lavender, eucalyptus, the menthol. I know Vicks contains eucalyptus and menthol, and I use it even when I'm not sick.
Valerian is the one I was thinking.
Valeria.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And then, go on, the men are going to talk. Let's stop.
Right, so I also would mention, so I mentioned the eucalyptus, the menthol, mint, the rosemary. So that's the aromatherapy part of it. The sounds, we try to avoid loud sounds. I mean, turn off the TV and try to close your windows. And Elder?
Yeah, but when I had COVID, one of the reactions that it had, it took away my sleep. Yeah, it was the only time that I actually went on sleeping tablets. But when I had the effect of the sleeping, when I felt it, I thought I've got to get off the sleeping tablets as fast as possible. But one of the things that helped me was, when you have Epsom salt bath and you feel really relaxed, the salt is magnesium salt. And so what I got was a magnesium. It's kind of like a magnesium cream, which you rub into your skin.
Oh, wow.
And that really helped.
Oh.
Yeah, but you put a little in it because it can burn. as well. But that's
I need to
helpful.
try that. Right, and the other thing that affects your sleep is if you work swing shifts. So for me, I did 2 night shifts this week, and I mean, it's just something I can't escape. I mean, hospital is a 24-hour institution, so we always have to be there. So if you can avoid swinging your shifts nights and days, you really should avoid that altogether. I can't wait to be done with my advanced training so that I can have just more control over my sleep cycle. And can I mention that there's some research that shows that missing out on working night shifts can actually increase your chance of getting cancer. Anybody came across that? Any breach of these 8 laws shortens your life. Any breach at all ultimately will shorten your life. Right, so sleep is very important. We tend to take it for granted, but it's extremely important, right? And so anything else that we think that we overlook where temperance is concerned?
Making sure that you've done kind things or not done anything so your conscience is clear. Because sometimes we go to sleep, or we try to sleep, but there's something on our minds.
Right.
So I think I read in one of the councils that you try and not to go to bed with anything on you.
There's a scripture that speaks to that.
Yeah, but there's something in councils as well.
Let not the sun set on your anger.
But even that, I think aside from that, it's about doing acts of kindness. So when you go to sleep, your mind is free and there's nothing making you conscious that you've not done either your best or you've done something to harm someone or not done something. So I think they talk about making sure that your conscience is free.
And your conscience is free, which is true. But the Bible tells us that you fret not about anything, right? So you really shouldn't be ruminating on things constantly. You just need to just, know when to push it at God's feet and move on. Right, Sister Monet?
Just the point that people do not realize that if you're a lazy person and you spend the whole day dozing, then why would you expect to sleep
at
8
night.
hours? So physical activity is actually quite important. So temperance is about having a balanced lifestyle.
Right.
So if you're the person that works at the computer all day, which means it's your fingers and your brain, then you do need to go outside and get some physical activity.
Excellent.
While on the other hand, if you're a gardener and you're outside all day, then maybe for you, you would need to do some gentle reading or gentle music so that you fall into a routine. So sleep becomes part of your 24-hour cycle.
Excellent. And it just occurred to me that temperance is actually one of the laws that you can expand a lot, because when you think about temperance, it also addresses our spending habits, right? I mean, if you don't take charge or responsibility over your spending, you really can have a lot of problems, right? What happens when you can't pay your bills and you start to worry, and worry was what brings on stress. Stress brings on all sorts of physical problems, right? So also socializing is very important. You to stay at home, watch TV by yourself all the time. You need to go meet with friends, meet with your neighbors, come to church. That's the Bible said that we should not forsake the fellowship, the assembly of one to the other, right? So that's exceptionally important. So we move on now to the fresh air, and one of the important things about the fresh air is that in a city like Manchester, you might not necessarily be able to achieve it, but your mayor is actually trying his best to improve the quality of air in this city, which is exceptionally good. Again, the book, The Ministry of Healing, refers to the life of Christ and how he would go out in the fresh air. But I trust that back then they didn't have problem with the air quality, right? So anything else that we can talk about where fresh air is concerned? The fresh air, right. So it comes back again to the country living. Mrs. White said that we should move out of the cities, go into the countries, and this is one of the benefits rather of moving into the countryside. And I moved from Manchester 2 years ago, and I went down to the bush, the sticks in Cheshire, and I really love the fresh air down there. It's really nice. Someone was going to add anything else to this bit?
I think you can, as much as we'd love to go into the country, which is fine, think it's not possible for everyone, but the next best thing is go for walks near green, leafy trees and things in the parks.
Nice.
And obviously avoid the times when the pollution is the strongest. So rush hour,
Right.
you can go early morning or later on at night. But
Right.
you also get the sunlight if you're walking in the daytime as
Right.
well, in the mornings.
Another very important factor is you can choose where you live, even in a city, because quite often people will choose, well, this is a good school by the Ofsted reports, but in fact it's quite important that you look at what's the quality of air in your area where you buy, because that can really have an influence on your health and that of your growing child.
Right.
So, collectively, if you say, looking at Manchester, central Manchester has got poorer environmental health issues compared to another area. South Manchester, for instance, comes up quite high. And if you look at it in terms of life expectancy, I know we keep referring to that, it does make a difference of 7 years in age.
Right. Okay.
Of longevity.
Right.
So I think when we look at a house, it's good to view it from the physical aspects, but we need to be mindful of the environmental. I mean, for me, personally, I'm not a flat dweller. I prefer a house because the advantage of a garden
is so good. Like, that's,
yeah.
I chose a house just because of the garden myself.
Right.
Yes.
So that's it may make an impact on your person initially,
right.
but in the long term,
right.
it's beneficial for you and your family should you have one
right.
or when you have one.
Excellent. Another point. Yes.
Sorry, and where you site your house as well, or where you choose to live, making sure there's not a lot of pylons and things like that, which you get the waves
right.
of whatever going through, and these 5G things popping up everywhere. So I think sometimes you've got to be mindful of as you say, the environment and where
right.
you choose to live.
Excellent, and this is the topic that is very, very topical or global. Reason being, greenhouse warming and global warming and all these various things. We already know why that's very important, right? So I think we've discussed most of the stuff in this topic, and we have already discussed sleep. Yeah. So we're going through, and trust in God, right? So trust. Trust is important because, once again, this is the point. This is the aspect of the health ministries that I think this church, our personal ministries director, as well as our health leader, they have worked exceptionally hard in bringing across the spiritual aspect of health. Whenever we have one of our health days, I think they touch a lot on the spiritual aspect, which I think is really, really good, because we tend to forget that our relationship with the Lord is part of how we take care of our health, especially our mental health, right? Just having, knowing your scriptures, knowing these, the songs in our hymnal, the way they give us some amount of reminder that the Lord is taking care of us is exceptional. And of course, it's part of how we build a relationship with Christ and build a relationship with each other as a church brethren. And I would say that your spiritual health is exceptionally important, even though we don't really talk about it. But if you are a person who always go to the gym, you look healthy, you're always drinking these green juices, and you are, the outward appearance would give the sense that you're this really health conscious person, but then you don't have a relationship with the Savior, then you're technically not a healthy person, right? So it just shows that there's more to health than just the way you look physically and the things you eat and the various ways in which you try to look at this trendy health person, but you also need to have that spiritual relationship with the Lord, and that's why trust is so important. And Mrs. White, in the book Life of Today, page 151, tells us that gratitude, rejoicing, benevolence, trust in God's love and care, these are health's greatest safeguard, right? So science has proven now that people who trust in God and have faith come through illnesses and surgeries better than those who do not trust in God. And you said that you were visiting a hospital a while ago, right? And of course, that will be exceptionally important for people. And this is why most hospitals nowadays, even though they might seem or give the appearance that they are institutions that aren't necessarily religious, but they do have a chaplaincy, right? And the chaplain will come and they would offer their support for those of you who want it. I know that at Salford Royal Hospital, their chaplaincy function in such a way that whichever religious belief you are of, they will get in contact with you, with a local church pastor from that religious belief. So if you're Adventist and you need an Adventist pastor to come in for you, they would arrange for an Adventist pastor to come in, right? So it's exceptionally important. Anything to share from gentleman, from elder? No? Anything to share? Please.
Just one thought. When you look at trust, a very important part of that is sharing and doing good deeds. And it's so much so that in America now, all the large corporations give their staff time out to go and work in the community and do acts of kindness.
Kindness,
and
right.
that's actually become part of the structure.
Right.
And that is also part linked to trust. If you're doing something for someone else, it actually increases your own mental health.
Excellent.
Even if it's cats and dogs.
Right. So that's the 8 laws of health in a nutshell. And even though we went about them quite in detail. So, of course, this point, again, we're going back into the well-being aspect of it, and we're looking a little bit more on the spiritual aspect of health. And I'm not going to ask anybody to raise their hands, but how many of us do read our Bibles on a daily basis, really? Exactly, right? I'm not going to do a gotcha moment with anyone right now to make you feel embarrassed or feel awkward. But it's very important to read the Bible, right? I remember my mother was going through, or our family rather, was going through a rough patch, and my mother became this person who was praying constantly, and she was looking at a lot of the Bible scriptures, especially Psalms 91 and these warfare prayers per se, to pray for people who are going through to pray for individuals who are going through rough patches in their lives. And it was exceptional because it brought a lot of our family members closer to God, right? And this leads back to what we were speaking about initially, about men and how we struggle with depression and anxiety. And a lot of the scriptures in the Bible can help you to overcome anxiety. But I must say that even though we're looking at the scripture, we're looking at the 8 laws of health, we're looking at prayers, there comes a point where if you are seriously mentally ill and you can still go ahead and speak to a healthcare professional where you need that added support to contribute to your illness, to help you through it, right? So reading the Bible is exceptionally important, and I struggled with anxiety as a teenager, somewhere about 15 up until late teenage years. I struggled with anxiety and depression. Well, not depression, anxiety. And one of the things that helped me through was the Bible. By reading the Bible and learning all these scriptures about fret not, and cast your words upon to the Lord, and try not to fall asleep with anything on your mind. So I'll be sharing some of these scriptures for those of you who might not necessarily be familiar with them, but there are lots of scriptures that help us to safeguard against mental health issues, struggling with low mood and depression. They are there. So who is familiar with this one? Philippians 4 verse 16. Do not be anxious about anything. That's one of them that I always have to remind myself of. If something happens and the first thing happens is that I start to worry, my heart rate goes up, I start to have this rapid shallow breathing. And I have to remind myself about Philippians 4 verse 16, be anxious for nothing, right? And then here is another one, Deuteronomy 31 verse 6. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them, for it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Remember that, right? So the highlights is, so do not fear, right? Remember that the Lord is with you at all times. And sometimes when we're going through a rough patch in our life, it's hard to remind ourselves of this, but we really have to make an added an added effort to memorize scriptures, not just to read, not only to read your Sabbath school quarterly on a daily basis, but we have to memorize these scriptures because they're there to help us. And of course, the book that I've been referring to constantly, the Ministry of Healing. Remember in 2019, I believe, or 2020, we chose this book as our health book of the year. We were supposed to go through it in a particular order where we were going to take the entire church through the book while we read along. But that didn't happen, but don't worry. We will be referring to it in many of our presentations, and I do believe earlier on this year when we were going through some of our, what do we call those days again? So was it wellness days, Sister Monet? What did we entitle our health days? Yeah. Was it wellness? Right, and many of the passages or from this book, and if you don't have it, you can download this book. I'm sure the Seventh-day Adventist Church allows you to download its material for free without breaching any copyright laws. And we do have them here from time to time.
We do have tomorrow is the day you could buy.
Oh, you can purchase.
270, 280 tomorrow.
Right, you can purchase this book tomorrow. And if you need to borrow mine, I have one at home that I've read, and I'll be more than happy to lend it out. I have so many of these books to lend. Right, and if you're a person who likes to do colporting ministry, I would suggest that this is one of the books that you could, if you can sacrifice to purchase it, to give it away, you can do this, give this book away. All right, so at this point, we're starting to wrap up now. I know that it's getting late, and we have another activity coming up at 6:30, and we are going to touch on the prostate cancer. Right, so hands up, who has a prostate? Men, women, everybody? All right, question? First question, yes. Getting them involved.
Yes, I have prostate.
Pardon?
It's pressing against my bladder.
But you have a prostate issue? Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's what troubling my sleeping.
Oh, is it?
Because sometimes when I'm ready to sleep, that's the time I get to get up.
You need to get up to use it to urinate. We'll explain why that happens. All right.
Okay.
All right. So the question that I asked was a question that could be seen as being controversial in today's climate. But of course, if you're born biologically a male, you're born with a prostate, right? And that's as much as I would say. I don't want my church board to receive a complaint. But yes, so prostate cancer Awareness Month. And when do we celebrate Prostate Cancer Awareness Month? Pardon? Is it October? I memorized it, but I forgot. But I think it's around the same time as the Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But hey, I mean, we should be raising prostate cancer awareness right throughout the year regardless, right? So, of course, the blue ribbon is the international symbol for prostate cancer awareness. And let's take a quick recap of the male reproductive system. So, we're all familiar with the pelvic bone, the urinary bladder that stores the urine, and we have the prostate, and then we have the male organ. And so, what's the function of the prostate? This random organ that we don't know the function of. Anybody? The men. So the prostate, actually, the function of it is to produce the fluid content of semen, essentially. So it produces all the fluid that contains the nutrients for the sperm cells to survive long enough, right? So it's important for all of us being here, essentially. Next is, so we're familiar with where it is. It's just at the base, and you will realize how close it is to the back passage. And that's why one of the tests that you have to do every year as a man after the age of 40 is to have a digital rectal examination, because as you can see, the prostate is very close to the back passage, right? And I'll explain why that's important. So definition. Can we think of how would you explain what cancer is to someone or to a child? That's the standard. We have the standard of explaining anything in healthcare is that of a child of approximately 10 years old. How would we be able to explain it to a 10-year-old?
I would say the cells that are in your body, the things that help you to grow,
Cells.
they grow a little
Cells. Not everybody know what a cell is.
bit. Okay. The things that make your body work, they grow too big, or they grow in a way that they're not meant to grow.
That the last bit is the one I like, right? So it grows in a way that it shouldn't be growing. That's excellent, right? And everybody agree with that one, that explanation? Yeah, I agree as well. So development of abnormal tissue originating within the prostate that has the ability to destroy other tissues. So essentially, it takes on unusual powers per se. So they grow a lot, grows big, and it starts to invade the other surrounding tissue, right? So it invades the bladder, it invades the rectum, invades the bone, it spreads, and it ends up in the brain. And this is why you see older men in their 80s, they have multiple strokes, they are bedbound, they usually have prostate cancer causing these strokes, and they can't move anywhere. So this abnormal tissue may or may not spread to other parts of the body. So if you catch it early, you catch it before it starts to spread, right? And that is why we talk about, that's why we have these presentations, why the NHS has this big campaign and the World Health Organization has this big campaign about prostate health. It's because we want to catch it early, right? So what are the risk factors? Here are some of the risk factors. Race, black men in particular. Men of the black as well as Asian origin are higher risk of developing prostate cancer. Why? It's just genetics, really, can't explain, especially if you're from the Caribbean. So black men from the Caribbean are at higher risk of prostate cancer than black men from Africa, believe it or not. You think that we are the same, one and the same race, right? But we're at higher risk. So family history, my grandfather, my mother's father just died from prostate cancer in 2019. My mother has like 3 uncles who passed away from prostate cancer, so clearly I am a prime target for prostate cancer, right? And diet. So diet. What in diet can cause prostate cancer? Red meat, chicken. Believe it or not, Mrs. Fifield, she came up on one of the presentations for us. She had a book that explained that chicken is one of the things that could cause prostate cancer. And I was surprised because I didn't know that until I read the book. She just right there. I was where you are sat. I just skimmed through the book and realized that chicken is actually one of those things. And we talk about red meat versus white meat. White meat is better, but clearly it isn't. Meat is bad regardless of whatever it is, right? So chemicals. So some chemicals from the environment can cause it. Hormones. Prostate cancers are sensitive to testosterone, the male hormone. So this is why when some people are diagnosed with prostate cancer, you get testosterone blockers. And it's just to prevent the cancer from generating and growing back again. Age. What's the age when we start getting concerned?
Over 45, did you say?
No, did I?
Oh, I don't know.
All right, so in this country, the age is 50, but in the Caribbean, it's 40 years old. Reason being, it's the ethnic makeup of the country, right? So the UK is, 3% black people? And of course, I mentioned that we're higher risk, but the vast majority of the UK aren't black. So the overall risk of the country is less at 40. So that's why they started at 50 years old. However, in the Caribbean, the risk is so much higher, and they have to start screening 10 years earlier, right? So I have 8 more years to go before I start mine, and I do intend to get my regular screening. Right? So remember, race, diet, chemicals, hormones, aging, system on it.
I'm just thinking, from what you're saying, you can look at the cultural in terms of diet.
Right.
African people believe in red meat, while Caribbean people, if they have chicken 7 days a week, it's not too many for them.
Yes.
And over the last 40 years, production of chicken has changed from outdoor farming to indoor house chickens. Within 8 weeks, you're being sold a chicken, while when I was a child, the chicken was like a 12-month thing.
Oh, wow.
And it ran all over the place, didn't it? So it was an outdoor bird.
Right.
And it tended to grow on corn and healthy seeds, as someone is saying.
Right.
So I think you can see, although people of African descent and Caribbean descent have got a lot of genetics, they're also cultural factors.
They're cultural factors.
There's a bit of research for someone.
That is true, and they have been doing lots of research. Some of my university lecturers are some of the world leading experts in this because of course we have a higher incidence of it in the Caribbean. Any other questions before we go on from the causes?
Oh. You know, a lot of these studies and things, what I've heard men talking about and scientists,
Right.
you know, I find it hard to believe in it. You know, why? Because they said, right, if you smoke,
Right.
cancer.
So what any cancer can be caused from smoking.
Right. I know a lady,
Right.
smokes, she said, from when she going to school. And met her in the hospital, and every morning we'll have to go and get a paper, a cigarette,
Right.
and thing, and give her. And she's as healthy as a buck,
Oh wow.
right? And she don't have no cancer, nor nothing. And people who do not smoke, they have cancer.
All right,
How do you
but
work
you're
that
looking at one person. You're looking at one person. But when you look at the entire population, we do know that people who smoke are at higher risk of everything that's bad compared to people who don't smoke. That's why you can't compare just one person. I mean, my great grandmother, she smoked like a tobacco pipe for 50 years. And I think it was when she was 96, she passed away, and she was healthy most of her life. But she had children who died from lung cancer at much younger age. So we can't really compare it because smoking is bad regardless of what you say. And somebody just talk about passive smoking. I mean, which means that essentially somebody else is smoking around you and you are inhaling the fumes, and essentially it puts you at risk of all the same lung problems. You're still at risk of lung cancer even from passive smoking. And I am kind of worried about it because when I was in my early 20s, my landlord smoked constantly. I don't know how I managed to live at that house for so long, but I'd lived there for a while, and I'm pretty sure that I am at risk of something. Yeah, Elder.
Yeah, there is a saying, do not make the exception the rule. Yeah. And basically what that means is that we're looking at probabilities in terms of risk, and we're not saying that it's 100%. If you touch this or if you eat this, that 100% this will happen. But what they are saying is that it increases the likelihood of it happening greatly. And so you would then take that on board and look at living the best that you can, eating the best, avoiding those things that can harm. Yeah, so it's not to make the exception the rule.
Right, and we tend to do that, especially as Caribbean people look at one person and say, well, they're an exception to the rule, but we really shouldn't. We should look at the whole population, right? Yeah? All right, so remind me of your name again, brother. Remind me of your name again. Brother Clinton. So he was mentioning earlier about the fact that he struggles with a prostate condition that causes him to go to bed and be essentially waking up multiple times through the night just to urinate. And I'll explain why. So some of the symptoms of men who struggle with the prostate. So before I explain the symptoms, we have to look back at this. So you notice the line, the passage of urine from the bladder, it passes through the urethra, and we have the urethra passes through the prostate. This is known as the prostatic urethra, but we can easily forget that big term. But just know that the urethra that the urine passes through the prostate. Now, once this prostate starts to get enlarged, it also compresses that urethra, right? Mm-hmm. Following? If it compresses the urethra, it's like having a hose, and then you compress that hose. So the flow significantly decreases, no? Right? And if it is that you have less urine passing through, what's going to happen is that there's going to be some urine left back inside of the bladder, right? So as the prostate increases, it compresses the urethra. So when men with prostate problems, such as not just cancer, but prostate enlargement, which is known as benign prostatic hyperplasia, they try to urinate. The urine flow is very poor, so it's slow. It's a very slow sort of urine. It's not the same as it was when you were younger. It's slow. Sometimes you have dribbling, And sometimes you have to wait a while just to develop enough pressure inside the bladder just to get the urine to pass through the prostate bit, right? So you have this thing called hesitancy, where you stand there trying to urinate and the urine just not flowing. So that's the hesitancy. Then you have the poor streaming, where there's just not strong enough, and you have the dribbling that happens. And then you have this thing called the nighttime urination. Why is it nighttime urination? Simply because you can't get all the urine out of the bladder, right? So you have this bladder, if it has a residue of urine always there. So if you constantly have a residue of urine, what's going to happen when new urine is produced, it has less space to go, right? So what will happen is that you find that you have to keep emptying the bladder quite frequently to create to create more space for that new urine, right? Because there's always urine left behind. So essentially, if you have a container and there is fluid inside of it, and you need to get new fluid in, it fills up very quickly just because there's always something there, right? You can't get all the urine out. So that's why you have this frequency, urinary frequency at nighttime. And is that clear? Did I go a little bit too fast? So you get the pain because the bladder is stretching, right? Not really. Right, so difficulty urinating because the prostate is compressing the urethra. You have the low stream of urine because it just can't get through. The frequency because the bladder is partially full. The constant need to urinate, which is the same thing. And the dark reddish urine. So the dark reddish urine is because of the cancer is invading the blood vessels in the prostate, in the urethra, in the bladder. And once the blood vessels are invaded, it starts to leak blood. So you tend to see blood inside of the urine. And it's usually towards I believe it's usually towards the end of the urine that you see the blood, right? So blood is always a bad thing. If you find blood in your urine, get it checked out, please. So weak or swollen limbs, and that simply refers to the way in which the prostate itself, the prostate cancer itself, can be compressing your spine. So once it compresses the spinal cord or the nerves, you will lose the strength of the muscles, right? And the back pain, again, it's causing an invasion of the spine, which is right here. So it easily travels to the spine in many cases, and that's why you end up having the back problems as well as the lower limb weakness. Yeah? Is that clear? All right, so men's health. So this is touching back again on the 8 laws. So eat healthy. So move more, which is exercise. Quit smoking, which is temperance. And then get regular checkups. Of course, temperance include getting regular checkups, right? And so this is what we mentioned before. I did this presentation for the UK. So men aged 50 and above in the UK should go. But if you're from the Caribbean or your Caribbean descent, it's 40. And I think that you should initiate this contact with your GP to get it checked out. So don't wait to get a letter from the GP saying that you should come in for your check. The onus is on you, right? So go and get your prostate checked out. And it's once per year, every year, right? Age 40, once per year, every year, if you're a black person of Caribbean descent. And what does the tests include? We all hear about the blood test. It's the PSA, which is a specific chemical produced by the prostate, and it's in your blood, right? So as the prostate enlarges, it produces more PSA, so the level rises. With some prostate cancer, not all prostate cancers, they produce PSA and it goes up. So the normal is about, I believe it's 0 to 4. And when you have prostate cancer, it might go up to the thousands. So clearly something is happening there that's abnormal, right? The prostate exam, why is it important? Because not all prostate cancers produce PSA. So you must find out if something is happening. The doctor needs to feel the prostate. So when I did this presentation with our brethren at Erdington SDA in Birmingham, they really appreciated the fact that I pointed out how to tell the difference. So this part of the hand is known as the thenar eminence. So if you press it, everybody press it, the thumb, right? So that's soft, right? So that's what a normal prostate would feel like. And then, if you touch the tip of your finger, you touch the tip of your nose, that's firm, and that's the prostate shouldn't feel like that. Now, if you touch your knuckle, that's hard. So a cancerous prostate would feel like the knuckle, right? So you can tell there's a difference between your knuckle and right here in your hand. Big difference, right? So if your prostate is getting hard, you need a doctor to be able to feel the difference. So that's why the digital rectal examination is important. And again, men, I remember I did this presentation in New York City at my brother's church, and there was a judge there, and he was telling the guys that you need to man up, make sure you get your prostate exam done, because he got his done like the same week, I believe. And the thing is that men tend to be shy, they don't want this, they don't want to do that test. But at the end of the day, I find that they might say that in the presence of other people, but when they come to hospital, they are usually not shy because it's private, it's confidential. You tell them that it needs to be done, they are usually quite okay with it. And I would suggest that you discuss this among your friends. If you have like brothers, grandfather, uncles, everybody, just please encourage them, right? So this is a very important slide. I think it's the most important, one of the most important slides in this presentation, where prostate cancer awareness is important. You see this big thing, I make sure I put that in red, early detection, right? I remember I said that you want to catch it before it's starting to spread and you can't really do anything at all about it. Or, well, you can't do enough about it, right? So early detection is extremely important. Age 40 and above, if you're a black man of Caribbean descent, every single year, you need to do both the blood test and the prostate digital rectal examination, right? It's just the way to go. And as black men, the number one killer in terms of cancers is prostate cancer, right? Right, so.
Too much.
So you're mentioning that that's a challenge for you drinking water,
Yeah,
because
too
they
much
keep
water,
going to the bathroom. And of course, I get that, because, I mean, as you go up in age, you realize that even sometimes you can't make it to the bathroom as quickly as you can, put you at risk of having falls, and then that has its own health challenges of a person falling and so forth. But yes, I do agree with you that might put a restriction on how much water you should be able to drink.
Yes, I think I was reading something. I think it was this week or last
Right,
week. I don't
right.
remember when. The test, the home test. That would you recommend that home test for the prostate?
Home test?
Yeah.
I've never heard about this one before.
Yeah, I think it's called icicle or something like that.
How do they do the test?
I'm not quite sure. I think something like the P on it, something like that, and it probably
I've honestly never heard about this test
No.
before. It's the only one that is mainstream, that we advocate, especially through the NHS and through international standards, is the blood test, which is the PSA, and the digital rectal examination. I'm not sure about the home test, but I would have to do some research and come back and discuss it probably in a few weeks' time when we do this presentation again. All right, I promise you I will look it up, but I haven't heard about it. Anybody heard about a prostate home test? No, I haven't heard about it. Yeah. All right, remember, get your prostate checked every year. And has everyone been getting their test done? Yeah? No? Said no. You need to get it checked. There's the only way to know if you have prostate cancer is get it checked. Remember that by the time you start developing symptoms, it is really too late, right? And as I said, as men, we need to become more responsible with our health, and we cannot wait until we get the symptoms, then we say yes. Remember, join the fight against prostate cancer.
Sorry, Doc.
Yes.
Let's move on. Let's talk about symptoms.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure if the prostate linked to erectile dysfunction or
Yes, because the nerves that allows people to have an erection is actually very close to the prostate, and if it is that you have some people with prostate cancer, it invade the nerves and they essentially die, so the men would lose a natural ability to get an erection. However, if I take the tablets, one of these tablets that you see being prescribed, it works in a different way. The tablets, they work on the blood vessels. But to get a natural erection, it's through the nerves, and the prostate cancer can damage those nerves. Yeah? So it can affect it. So 8 ways to stay healthy. We've been through all of these ways, so we're not going to look back at it. And once again, the 8 laws: nutrition, exercise, water, sunshine, temperance, fresh air, adequate rest, and trust in God. All right? And to remind us of some of the scriptures, it was a scripture that we read earlier this evening. It's, beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. And I think we've asked all the questions. we have asked all the questions. Elder?
Yeah, just one question. So say if you have an enlarged prostate, is there a way of actually reversing that? Reversing the size?
Yes. So there are tablets that the doctors would prescribe to open up the urethra a little bit more so you can get a better flow. And then there are tablets that they also can take. And these tablets cause a shrinkage of the prostate. But as soon as you stop taking the tablets, it grows back, simply because it's just the way in which the prostate responds to the male hormones, which is testosterone. So there's a way to reverse it. But in terms of natural remedies, I'm not familiar with any. Are you familiar with any natural remedy to pomegranate? I'm not sure about that. I've never heard of. I'm not sure about.
I'm not quite sure about it, but
right.
But I heard that it's from that.
Okay, I think it's something that I would look into for the next presentation. But the ones that I know of so far are actually medicines, not necessarily natural remedies. Have you come across anything at the back? No, where prostate is concerned.
Not a treatment, but I think what we're talking about here, and I want to raise awareness, is about black health issues. Mm-hmm. Now, depending on where you're located, some surgeries do not take the data for NHS standards adequately in terms of the needs for black health needs. And so you may find that a surgery in the middle of Moss Side may actually have a target for all their black men. But you might find, on the other hand, you move out to Leafy Cheshire and you become just a small pebble, and therefore your needs are overlooked. So this is a point where we have to be assertive and think of all health needs and address them. And so you have to demand.
Right.
You said request, but sometimes you have to demand the health screening.
Right.
And one of the things from the last presentation was Health Cancer UK is I'm going to link with that worker so that we can have what they call health champions.
Okay.
Within our church.
Within our church.
And
right.
I hope that some of the men who are here would be willing to actually be part of that system so that you then become, say, jointly with Jason to speak to the other men and encourage more groups, because we've only got, 2% of the men here today, Paul, possibly, and we need to work with the other 98%.
Right, but that's why we have our health missionaries that we just recently graduated. Right, so at this point, let's remind us that there is a can in cancer because we can beat it. All right, and that was the end of our presentation. So we'll just like to summarize by saying that we would like everybody, especially the men, to be more aware of the way in which the ways in which our mental health can become affected by our daily lives, and that we should always remember that there is help there for us, and we should always try to apply the 8 laws of health, including myself, because I know that there's room for improvement. And as we go forward, the moment you reach age 40, if you are a black man of Caribbean descent, we definitely need to get our prostate cancer screening done every single year. Now, at this point, I would ask for Sister Monette. For prostate cancer awareness month is March. We were trying to remember that. So I would like to invite, yes, Sister Monette, can you please do our closing prayer at this time? Sister Monette is one of our health team members.
Shall we stand, please, brethren and sisterin? Sorry to wake up those who are dozing. Heavenly Father, God Almighty, we thank you for your presence and for our availability in this place of worship today. We honor you and we come before you in humility, thanking you for your messenger who has outlaid a healthy path for us. But Lord, I pray that you will help us, that we will open our attitudes to receive the information, and that once we've received it, that we may become messengers to share it with those that we live and work around. And Lord, we pray for our family members, because there, Lord, I know that sometimes the diagnosis of cancer becomes a barrier that many of our brethren are unable to deal with because of their emotional health. So Lord, help us that we will talk about the joy of health, but we will also share the knowledge that you've shared with us today. We thank you for the blessings of life, and we thank you for the blessings of health. We thank you, each one of us, for the age you've brought us to, and for that we say, to God be the glory, great things he has done. Bless our presenter, Lord, and may the team continue to present your word in an understandable way for the entire church and the community. Bless us this week. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Thank you so much, Sister Monette. And to those of us who have joined in online, this is where we come to an end for our AYS service today, and we pray that you shared information that was shared, as well as information that was gained from the discussions. Thank you so much.